How would you describe your new business in like a sentence or like a couple words? I know that it's a hard question.
I think I'd say blank canvas if I had to shorten it up, you know, so much. I think because I came from a world where a lot of things were designed and manufactured for you and done for you, and things had to fit in a box. So I think if I had to, you know, really minimize it, I think blank canvas, but just cool because then it lets you really, you know, build it from scratch, design it how you want.
That's awesome. It's like, you know, having that like, doing it on your own and doing it your way. That's so blank canvas, but in like what are some of the services that you provide and stuff like that?
Yep. So 3 main areas we focus on. So for the business side, it's retirement plan consulting. Mm-hmm. So we're advisors to corporate retirement plans. We help them design and pick out the investment lineup, offer participant support, you know, compliance support. Integrate with partners, and then on the individual side, it's, you know, the wealth management, financial planning, and then, you know, we have an estate strategies division for, you know, when that's applicable. So those are kind of the 3, I guess, pillars of the new firm.
So how did you get from, you know, we know each other back from like freshman and sophomore year at UNCW, you know, like, you know, being college students to now where you are today, like how do you bridge that story there?
So I guess a lot of different things that happen in life, like sometimes you don't know whether they're impactful or not, but it's like in the end it's almost like people you meet, things that you do, like somehow it very weirdly all, you know, connects.
It's crazy how it all comes together.
Obviously, you know, I don't know that many people grow or when they're younger like, hey, I want to be a, you know, financial planner when I grow up.
Exactly.
It's like you look at what the kids put on their storyboards and it's like, you know, jump out of planes or like, you know, professional surfer, like, fireman, whatever. You know, and back when we met in college, you know, I've always had to fit, like I've always enjoyed numbers and that type of scenario related to solving a puzzle or, you know, math in that capacity. But, you know, we ran a different business, you know about Thrust.
Back in you were an entrepreneur way back in the day.
And, you know, learned a lot about business from that experience. You know, at the moment in time, it was like, hey, I want a company where I'm, you know, surfing all the time and playing music. Like, you know, I think
music.
I think it was like, I always thought first about like kind of, hey, like in my personal, like what are the things that I enjoy and make me happy, and then how would I build around it, and you know, timing and probably a bunch of other things that wasn't the right one, and so, you know, eventually, you know, kind of a shift in the direction that I went. But if I had a pinpoint moment, you know, kind of junior year, it's like I got hit by a car, got in the car accident, and it was like that was a little bit of a halt to some of the things that, you know, I was doing. Soon after that, met my wife, you know, met Lauren, and I think, you know, kind of that was a big point of time where it was like, okay, you have to think beyond, you know, 1 week or 1 month at a time, you know, start thinking about, you know, what you want to do, you know, moving forward. And I knew I wanted to stay in Wilmington. I knew I wanted to, you know, be with Lauren, start a family here. And, you know, my dad had been in the financial services, you know, industry for a lot of years, and it's probably like the last thing I would have thought about doing. You know, he's like, hey, check this out. I'm like, oh, that sounds terrible.
That sounds terrible, Dad.
It's like worst idea. And kind of right out of school, you know, got my 7 and got into the business, and, you know, soon, you know, grew to really enjoy it. And I liked the autonomy I had to design it, you know, and to decide, hey, this is the direction I want to take this business, you know, decide the things that I enjoyed and the things I didn't enjoy. And so it felt good from the start, even though it was a difficult business to get into. I liked the idea to control which direction the ship was going. You know, that was really important to me, to be able to, you know, build something that aligned with kind of, you know, what I wanted to do in my life.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine a life event like the accident that you had back in college, like getting hit by a car, like that'll like make you like reassess a lot of stuff, right? Like all the things you take for granted.
100%. I think it did it for, things you think about with life. I was supposed to go on a surf trip that spring, and it was like, oh, you're not doing that.
Yeah, you're not.
And I was like, for that moment in time, like when a lot of things were taken away, like you said, you start to realize like, hey, we take a lot of things for granted. And I think that, that made me think more about just, hey, decisions I was going to be making and things that I wanted to have happen. And I think it kind of was a good moment in life that, kind of put me on a good direction.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned, the things that you liked about financial planning and building stuff. Elaborate a little bit more on that. Like what, like at the core, do you like enjoy most about what you do?
I think what I enjoy most is like when you're first sitting down with, clients, a business, whatever it is, it seems like there's some sort of friction or issue. There's something that's preventing this, family or this entity from getting, where they're trying to go. And I think when you look at it from one angle, a lot of times it is pretty clear like, hey, this isn't going to work. And so the idea of, I guess, solving that puzzle, saying, no, there's got to be a way. Like if they want to get here, there has to be a way. And then it's a matter of, hey, understanding tools, strategies, and putting them together. And I think that's where I get the most enjoyment out of, like, if it's something where it's like on the surface it seems complicated, it doesn't seem possible. I think I'm attracted to being like, no, there's a way. There's always a way. And I think when clients initially, come to chat with us, whether they have a ton of money or less money, a lot of times they feel like they don't see the way. And I think that's what kind of fires me up, because I'm like, no, like let's work through this. There is a way. We just might have to, tweak how we get there. But I think I'm like very optimistic about there always being a solution. And that's not the case for everything.
Right.
But I think if in general you believe it's possible, then you have a much better shot at achieving it.
Yeah, it's funny listening to what you said. Like I didn't. When I was a kid, I didn't like grow up wanting to be a financial planner. And same thing, like when I was a kid, like I definitely did not dream of being an accountant, right?
Yeah.
But it was just like, I don't know, what I did, and similar to what you're saying is like the best part of what I get to do every day is, just helping people and helping small businesses like solve problems and try to achieve their goals.
100%.
And that's, I think, kind of what you're outlining.
Yeah, I mean, it could sound cliche, but it really is rewarding to do that. Like you get just as stoked to see like their success, and so it's cool to be a part of it.
Yeah, I was talking with someone earlier today. I mentioned the idea of like the professional's curse, where it's like you focus so much on helping your clients achieve that it's like sometimes like you forget about yourself.
Oh, 100%.
Have you experienced that at all?
Without a doubt, because you're able to separate so much of the emotion, and like you have the responsibility to help these clients. They're trusting you, so you really don't take that lightly. So you're helping them make the best decisions for the best possible outcome. Comes to yourself, you're like, well, if I have all the tools, can I, try this, try that, and you get caught up in, the trick of trying to do things different. And at this point, I've more transitioned to try to automate more of our personal life and try to be more like one of my clients.
Yeah,
and
it's hard.
And it is hard, but as I've done it, it's kind of freeing, because it's like, hey, if that's what I'm telling clients, it makes sense. So it's like I'm going to start listening to myself a bit. And now with with Lauren being involved in the business as well, that's a different perspective. So that also helped.
Yeah, definitely.
Get us on the right track.
Definitely. What'd you study at UNCW?
So I went for business management. So I knew something related to business, but fairly general. In terms of on the management side. In hindsight, probably should have went more finance, which would have transitioned better. But there were a couple. It's funny because probably like if I were to highlight one thing I really took from UNCW from being in a classroom, there was this one course. The professor is a leadership course. And the only thing I remember, because he said it so many times, was vision, purpose, alignment.
Nice.
And I've put a post on it. I've done it, but it was basically like the core of anything you're trying to do. It was like you have a vision, then you need to make sure there's purpose behind it, And then alignment was the most important piece, and that's what I've seen so many times throughout my career with clients. Vision, you could have the vision. You could even have the purpose, but the alignment was really the ingredient, because if you don't align all the people involved, they're not going to want to, you're not going to get momentum. And so that's always one thing that I constantly go back to. I was like, hey, it's something that's kind of led us to go the path we've went and done things. It was like, it's almost the test, like, are we behind the vision? Is there purpose behind it? And then is there alignment across everyone involved? And sometimes there's not, and you have to recognize that and say, hey, this isn't the right path, because things just don't align. It could be timing, could be money, could be personnel, whatever it is. But when everything aligns, that's when you know something's real.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you've taken that philosophy, something you learned at UNCW, and like kind of use that as a cornerstone of how you run your business?
That's one thing that I have to give credit. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I mean, I think I would have said the people, like I think everything non-academic would have been what I really took from UNCW. Yeah. But if I were to sit there and say this one thing, I actually have to say that, well, that was a pretty impactful thing in my life, and it's something my kids know that, because they'll say, hey, Dad, we want to do this or we want that, and I'll teach it to them, and I'm like, so I see the vision, I see the purpose. I was like, but your mom and I, we're just not aligned right now. Like they'll sit there and they'll be like, well, how do we get you aligned? I was like, well, I don't know. It's like, are we doing you figure out whatever.
That is hilarious.
And if they like kind of do it sometimes, then it's like, we'll want to like encourage them and be like, well, see, that's it. You can't just sit there and say, we want this or we want to do this. Like sometimes, you have to kind of put the work into it. So
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so go Seahawks.
So how did you choose UNCW? How did you find Wilmington?
So I grew up, very close to the water, on the coast, and so growing up, being around, surfing, fishing, all these things, it was always, I felt like a part of me that I wanted to stay near the coast.
Yeah.
My parents pretty much said, you're not allowed to go to California. They're like, that's too far, we'll never see you.
Yeah.
Had some family in Florida, and actually somehow my mom like mentioned Wilmington. She's like, hey, I heard from so-and-so or whatever it was, and I was like, Wilmington? And she was like, yeah, Michael Jordan went there. I was like, Mom, I liked the Bulls when I was 5. like, I don't know that I'm picking this because, he grew up there. And I remember coming to visit, and, it was like as soon as I got here, I had that feeling of just like, looking around everywhere. I was like, this is it. It just didn't take long for me to know this was the spot I wanted to be.
And I remember there was you guys had like a little crew that came down here. I mean, like part of the thrust crew, and I remember some of the names but was that just just random, or were you guys like Chris Klusner? I remember.
Yep.
Pat Kelly.
Yep.
Were you do you guys coordinate that, or were you all just kind of randomly found Wilmington?
I think it was a mix of both. So we're all really good friends, and you're figuring out where you want to go. And I think just probably some, it's similar to how people keep moving into the area.
Yeah.
It's like momentum around. You get there and you're like, wow, this place is really, really awesome. And I think ultimately, as everyone was kind of making decisions, once they kind of checked it out, they were like, yep, this is awesome. This is the spot. So we were definitely, good friends growing up, and that, kind of probably, put that on the radar. But I think everyone on their own really found this to be a spot they wanted to be.
Yeah. And what year did you come down?
2005. So
2005.
Yeah, so 20 years.
And then when you dang, dude, that's crazy to think about. It's been 20 years, huh?
It is crazy.
It's wild. And then after you graduated, you just stayed in Wilmington the whole time. You didn't move away or anything like that, right?
Yep. So I had met Lauren our junior year. So, at that point, getting close to graduating and figuring it out, she, grew up outside of Charlotte. And so it was like, had I, decided to go back up to, New York or move, it's like that probably, wouldn't have, worked out.
Yeah.
So I knew that, I needed to figure something out to stay here, and kind of pretty much right straight from school is when took an internship and got into, the finance, industry.
And was that straight with Northwestern?
Correct. Yep.
Mutual when you
pretty
started?
much. Yep. Right out of school. And like I said, from the start, there was enough momentum, enjoyment, people I worked with, starting to understand, the business. And again, graduated in 2009, so that wasn't a great time for the economy. But, I remember my dad saying, well, it can't get much worse than this, I don't think. So I was like, okay.
Glass half full kind of guy, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. So it was, I think I was fortunate enough to start early enough that I had a longer runway to figure things out. Yeah. I couldn't imagine, we took a big leap by, launching the firm and essentially starting over to rebrand under the new company. But I couldn't imagine like starting from scratch, married, 2 kids, a mortgage, that was a difficult, time to be able to establish that base.
Well, and financial planning in a lot of businesses, but I mean, that's not something that you start on day one and you're like killing it, right? Like that takes time to cultivate relationships and get your name out there, and the sales process is not like a quick process, right?
100%. It because again, it's relationship driven, it's trust driven, so it's hard to really speed that up if you're wanting to do it the right way. And that's difficult if you're starting, you're saying, hey, this is an opportunity where I could help someone and I think it's a good fit, but maybe it wasn't the right time for them, right? And it's like, okay, well, you're back out. So I think you certainly learn a little bit of grit. It's not a dangerous profession, maybe get a paper cut. But it does teach you some grit because you do have to try to stay focused to really endure some of the early wins and losses. You have to be able to kind of sustain for a certain period of time before you have the ability to really grow and take care of your clients and your family.
Yeah. So you from straight out of school, like going right into financial planning and services, and now you're a business owner. I mean, you went from being you had a journey to somehow become an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. What were some of the pivotal parts along that where you're starting to realize hey, my job is more than just my job. I got to sell, I got to manage people, I got to talk, I got to optimize our internal processes. How does that all come together?
I think that's probably a big reason that, got me here. I definitely have to give a lot of credit to Lauren, who was always supporting everything, but also providing perspective. Mm-hmm. So she was supporting, whatever I did or told her. She's like, I support you. But she's like, that doesn't make sense. You just told me about all these issues. That's not making sense. But I think it was exactly that you're wearing all these different hats, mm-hmm. and you're trying to figure out all these things, but some of them you just can't control. Yeah. And I think eventually I hit the point of saying, hey, if I'm going to, spend the rest of my career and my life focused on this business, I need to have the ability to, to control some of those things that are, causing friction. Mm-hmm. And I think I saw it in how my internal team operated and how we operated with clients. Nothing more than, just, I guess, a lack of alignment. Yeah. And it comes back to that. Yeah. It was hey, there's all the right pieces, all the right things, but it's if these aren't aligned, it's creating friction. And friction is creating inefficiency, and that's creating headaches. And I think at a certain point, I tend to think I'm always pretty, optimistic, always, pretty stoked. Yeah. But it was chipping away at me, because it was man, I'm not going to just give up and, I've got all these things that I need to do and I know this should work, but it was chipping away at me to not be able to, improve the outcome the way I wanted.
Yeah. I've got a mentor and a coach that talks about personal vision, mm-hmm. and you talking about that, and then also, and that's kind of the guiding factor. Do you know Dallas Romanowski?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when I talk with Dallas, he's the first thing he ever asked me was, "What's your personal vision?" And I started telling him about the business. He's like,
Yeah.
no. Like,
Yeah.
what is your personal vision?
Yep.
And everything you're saying now is like, I'm thinking about the alignment, because that's like the fundamental basis on how, you know, we approach our conversations and decisions. Because it's like,
Yep.
hey, this is your personal vision,
Mm-hmm.
but this is what you're actually doing. How does that align with like where you're trying to go, right?
100%. And I think it was helpful to understand that for, again, personally what we wanted. And I think it's a similar approach we take with clients, where a lot of times they're like, what's the financial plan to help us retire? Or what's the strategy to do this? And it goes back to, well, what is that vision? What does it look like? And when you could reverse engineer a plan that starts with the vision, much more likely to follow it, because you care about that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's got to be more than, I just want a lot of money, or I want to just travel. You know, it's like, no, really, like what is happening in your life? Like, where are you? You know, how much time are you spending in or away from your job or your business? And so I don't think you ever perfect that, because anytime I first get asked about vision, I'm like, I don't know, like vision's awesome. Like, everything's perfect, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to do it to yourself, but when someone else pulls back the layers, it does, you know, kind of give you some clarity. And it's like, wait, yeah, these are the things that are important to me. And I think I've always tried to, like, you know, try to prioritize the things that are important, but it's hard.
Yeah.
You know, you get sucked into all these other things that aren't important. And I think that, you know, you hear when someone like gets a bad diagnosis or something happens, it changes that. And I didn't want that to be what it took. I wanted to be like, well, hey, if this is your last day, your last whatever, are you operating how you'd want to be? And, you know, you have to remind yourself that often, but
Yeah.
I think it kind of helps keep you on track to what's important.
Yeah. How much of your conversations with your clients or prospects would you say are like, you know, like very technical based versus more of like just being like a coach and asking questions and like the qualitative kind of fluffy stuff?
So when I started, it was probably 90-10 technical
yeah.
to flow,
Yeah.
and now it's probably 10-90.
Yeah.
Because, you know, ultimately you start to realize none of that matters, and clients aren't, you know, you could like,
I mean, it does, but it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's just like, that's an out of the box solution that anybody could go get pretty much anywhere.
Correct.
Right?
I mean, look at AI. I mean, it's amazing half the things, like questions that I would get asked and like think about and give a good answer.
Yeah.
Literally, you type into AI and I'm like, wow, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
So it's like, if that's all you're doing, it's like, it's kind of tough. I think the human element is kind of decoding that, because sometimes they ask a question, but it's like, well, what did you really mean by that? You know? And so most of the discussions we have, you know, again, whether it's individuals or businesses, a lot of it's, you know, more, again, that coaching and the direction they're trying to go. Now, if they want to get granular, we still enjoy that.
Yeah.
You know, I enjoy
Yeah,
going through, and we'll go through all of it, but I found most people, that's not really what they care about. You know, they want to know it worked. They don't want to be, you know, feel like they were misled or something, or they don't know what's happening. They want transparency. But once, you know, there's trust and they know that, you know, you're on the same page, I think it gets away from the technical stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to build the foundation, like you said, like starting with the technical stuff, like, because you can't just go straight from zero to being the CEO, right? Like, there's some, you know, technical and foundational stuff that you need to develop.
For sure. And again, we were joking, 20 years already since, you know, we're back in college, but you do get perspective over time. You know, you do learn things, you see things, and I think that's helpful when it gives you the confidence to, hey, I've been in these scenarios before, I've seen these situations, so I don't think you need to rely so much on the you know, the data or the technicals, because it's like, hey, you know what you're doing, you've done it, and time is what gave you that.
What are your favorite types of conversations to have with people?
So, you know, I get fired up when you ask these questions, and like people do have somewhat of a vision, or they want the vision.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think that I like to hear when a client is excited about a different direction. Like when I'm meeting a client for the first time, they're interviewing us and we're interviewing them. And I want to make sure there's some sort of ROI. So it's not just like, oh, if you have assets, we'll manage them, or if you have a 401k, we'll be the advisor. I want to know that they care about the direction they're going, and they do have a high level of expectation. And I think that gets me fired up because it pushes me to be better. It's like I want someone to have a really high bar of what they expect, and me to say that, yes, we can deliver that. And then, the second probably best is when, that outcome happens and you're able to say, like, yeah, guess what? It worked like we planned. And in our business and in life, you can plan for everything. But when you kind of imagine a lot of the main scenarios, it really does help at least you not be surprised. I always feel like in any situation, whether it's related to finance or life or whatever you're doing, just thinking about possible outcomes, whether they're very likely or not, is really helpful, because if that unlikely thing ever happens, just mentally, you're not fully shocked. You're like, well, I did kind of imagine that was possible. Yeah. I'm still shocked, but it was like, like my wife will laugh just, growing up in different training things I'd done. Like if I'm in a restaurant, I still look at where are the exit signs. I like to have a seat, and it's just like, she's like, why? I was like, I don't know if there's ever a scenario. Well, don't you think it'd be good to know how to get out of here?
You're like undercover secret ops guy.
Yeah, and so I kind of like take that a little bit into finance, and like, I'm not asking questions to be like, what if only like crazy things happen, but I think when you let your brain think about that, then you could focus on, hey, what's likely to happen, what you want to have happen, and allows you to be more calm if something unexpected happened, because it's like it's not the first time you ever thought of it. It's like, well, I thought that was possible.
Yeah. You mentioned AI a couple times. What is that doing in the financial planning world, or like what are?
Yeah, in my opinion, it's amazing. And again, I know I keep mentioning Lauren, but she was the one. She's using ChatGPT and all this different AI for a lot of things, and what helped us, get here. And I think I was more hesitant. I was like, no, I get it. It's like superhuman, whatever, but I didn't really embrace it. And then as I've started to see it, it's like, wow, this is a pretty powerful tool. And I'm in no way fearful for it eliminating, the position. Again, that could be, I could be wrong, of course. But it takes tasks that would take a lot of time, and it does them quicker,
Yeah.
So it's the efficiency. And so like if it could help you focus on the things that are more important, and it could save you time, I think ultimately people, will say, hey, I want to save more money or have more money, but time is the most valuable
Time is the
commodity.
ultimate currency.
It really is. And so if AI could be used to save time, that's where I think it's beneficial. There's probably a lot of things that'll, need to be governed or reviewed, because who knows where it goes. We don't want to obviously be, taken over by AI.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm seeing it just really streamline our business for really just even a sounding board. Like I have an idea, strategy, throw it in there, get it back. Like quick feedback, quick data. I think it allows you to take a due diligence process that could be extensive and shorten it up to determine if it's worth pursuing. So I think that the humans that could use AI to help them make more human decisions faster, I think that's where it's really powerful.
I like that. Use AI to make human decisions faster.
Yeah. Sweet.
More human decisions faster. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, like we talked about it, the business you're in it's a relationships business, right? And like, knock on wood or famous last words, like, I don't see a computer in the very near term like replacing that, right? I mean, a computer can, help you analyze data or determine like investment strategies and stuff, but like sitting down and having a conversation with a human being about what their goals and what their like vision is like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're still fully capitalistic anymore, or if we're not, or whatever. But I think at the core of like competition in the marketplace and trying to, you know, push everyone to be better, I think AI is something that, like, I don't see it as a competition. I see it's like, okay, if AI is doing things better than I'm doing, then I should probably use AI to do that. The same way as if another company or firm was doing something better. Like, I think, you know, rather than fight good ideas, like, try to embrace them, and that's how I'm trying to approach it. But like you said, who knows? I mean, eventually we'll just be avatars, and they're like, so your avatar is just like you, builds better relationships.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that doesn't, it's probably not that far away in the grand scheme of things, but I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
So what are some of the main skills that you've learned, like, over, you know, the past 15, 20 years in business that has helped you, like, start, take the leap and start your own business, or what's given you the confidence to do so?
Yep. And again, I don't know if it's, I don't know if you'd say it's a skill, but like, to an extent, like a certain level of, like, you call it faith or confidence, that if you do the right things consistently, you have a better chance of it working out. And I think that goes back to, you know, people you meet over the course of your life, different jobs that you've had. If I learned things that I still think about today from time when I was working on, like, a fishing boat, or if I had a job here, if, you know, and it's like, I think if you could take something from all these different life moments, that's what gives you the confidence to, you know, to move forward and make decisions. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I guess, let me see, another way of answering that is, you gain confidence through failure. You mm-hmm. can't be afraid to fail. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to know what that's like, and you have to try things. And I think that over the course of my career, and, you know, I mean, again, when we decided to focus into the retirement plan consulting space, that wasn't an area that a lot of advisors really focused on. Mm-hmm. Competition from a lot of larger firms, and it was always that if I thought that there was an opportunity, it's like I was going to pursue it until I hit the wall so many times that it was just like, this is not possible. Mm-hmm. And so I think that you can't be afraid to try things. And, you know, going back to the whole, I'll keep saying vision, purpose, alignment, like, if there's something that you want to have happen in your life, in your business, no one's really holding you back except mm-hmm. for yourself. I listen to your podcast, not a ton. I listen to Jocko, Jocko podcast.
Yeah, that's probably much better to listen to.
He had said something once that resonated. It was like, he's like, it's not about winning the game. He's like, it's about winning the series of games. And like, kind of like clicked to me, like, sometimes we get so focused on this one thing, and it's like, no, you have a lot of things happening at once, and you're just trying to win, like, the overall series. So don't be afraid to lose a few. Like, it's okay to, you know, fail at certain things. And I think if I were to relate that to a skill, is like, well, that's through, hey, when you're starting from scratch, like, you're not going to be instantly successful, mm-hmm. you know? So if you're able to kind of, I guess, pursue, you know, past those first level failures, and you know that the mission or the direction you want to go is valid, you could always find the right people, the right partner. You know, you think about starting a business and, hey, you know, oh, I can't handle the finances. Like, well, guess what? Someone could do that.
Yeah.
Someone could say, what's your next problem?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm dealing with my market. Someone could do that. Yeah. Next. Someone, like, there are literally partners and people out there that have so many good qualities and skills, and you don't have to do it all yourself.
Mm-hmm. So you're how many months in, like, to the new business are you now?
So we are about a little over 3.5 months.
Nice.
Yeah. So,
nice, man.
Yep. Basically through summer. It was right around mid-May.
Okay. And so 3.5 months in to, you know, 15, 20 years from now, what does your business look like?
Yep. So, going back to the vision, I hope that, I feel very much the same as I do today. Although it's been chaotic getting it off the ground, we still like to, spend a lot of time with the kids and, still enjoy lifestyle, and I think when we kind of got to the point where we launched and everything was created, that's what led us to, really view this as also being an ecosystem. So we do have the infrastructure set up for other advisors that want to start their own firms to be able to plug and play. It was a lot of time, money, diligence that went into it, and what we were seeking really didn't exist in the way that aligned with our vision. And so, we thought that, it's a perfect model to say that, hey, if there's other advisors that, hey, they want to be branded their own way, they want to run their own companies, but they're struggling to make that leap because there's a lot to do. It's like, yeah, there's a lot to do, but, we've made it to be like a conduit for them to be able to, achieve that.
I dig it. So, that's scalable.
Yeah, that's the piece, I think, to your question, is the piece that's scalable. I think we've continued to operate and run our business lines one client at a time, full quality control, but scaling an organization that facilitates, other entities from, thriving.
Yeah, and it gives other people the opportunity, like you said, they can kind of have their own business within a business, or like have that support structure. Yep. Of administrative or whatever, all the things that you provide. And
yep. Yeah, 100%.
That's pretty cool. And you might have probably one of the best offices in town, huh?
The view's not bad. The view's not bad. Yeah, another one of those things that, like, I think in my mind, I had, if you ask some, some colleagues that are, still really good friends, I loved everyone I had worked with.
Yeah.
But I think they always heard me say, like, we need an office on the beach. We need an office on the water. And it was just like, there's another one of those examples where I think when you just, like, I tend to just say things all the time. Like,
and then it comes to fruition?
Yeah. It doesn't always happen, but I'm a big believer of, like, if you just keep saying it, like, eventually I think it does kind of push you to, to make it happen. So, that was a scenario that wound up pretty cool and, good place to be working out of.
So, what's a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the kids are off to school pretty early, so, drop them off at the bus.
That's cool.
Usually,
you take them?
We'll take them, walk down the street to the bus stop, and then usually either, Laura and I either take a walk, or if there's wave surf, I'll try to, like, early morning, like, make that a little time where, it's like, hey, coffee and something to start the day that, generally, like, puts me to good mood or, is healthy, whatever.
Yeah, totally.
And then typically, the first, I'd say hour or so, that's where I'm just looking at, the scheduled day and week and kind of, crossing off any stuff that needs to be checked off. I'll answer any emails, like anything that's come in I want to clear out. The next, hour and a half is usually blocked. A lot of our business is virtual now, so most of our meetings are 30-minute meetings. So if I could have, kind of 3 meetings back to back with existing or new clients, then grab some lunch, a little early food, mostly bring the lunch, and then most of the afternoon I'll have 2 more appointment spots for clients, but I spend a lot of time in the afternoon on kind of like strategic planning for the business, like what am I thinking ahead about, and I find that just my brain tends to work better in the morning, so it's like that's when I'm kind of doing some of the critical decision making, and then later in the day, I'm doing things that aren't time sensitive, but I'm really getting myself ahead for, the weeks ahead. So everything from marketing initiatives to, what client or prospect segment we're focused on. Most of our reviews are quarterly. So we tend to really jam in a lot of the work for quarter reviews, prep, everything ahead. And then in between those, we're able to, spend a lot of time focusing on the business, which previously I was just on it. It was like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I was putting out fires. I never had time. And so now when I do have time, it's not like dead time. It's like, okay, like what could I do next to try to improve this, and that's been helpful. So that's what most days look like.
Nice. Yeah, it's spending time to work on the business as opposed to in the business. And I'm sure that's, I've been there. It's tricky,
Yeah, it is. It's easy to get distracted though.
Yes.
You're gonna come over and be like, so what he's really doing? That's what I'm not gonna share my office address.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no. But and it has been though easy. I've been able to stay pretty focused and on task because again, a lot of the noise has been removed, and without those things, it does go back then to like, okay, I still, we're so fortunate and glad for how the launch happened, and for clients that trust us right off the bat, and business we've been able to build, but very much so still now growing the business. So we're not in a position that we're taking our foot off the gas. But it's been nice to go out and about again. To be here, to meet with partners. I've had a lot of face-to-face meetings. It's been exciting to be able to share kind of a new story and approach, and figure out new ways to do business with other people that I haven't done so. So new partners, new alliances. That's been exciting.
Kind of like rebranding yourself.
Yeah. 100%. Yep.
Yeah. What are some, how do you typically approach business development and sales?
Yeah. So a lot of, after, again, 15 years in the business, you start to look back on, what are the types of client engagements that I had the most enjoyment on, so I think going back and highlighting clients and businesses where we had a really successful engagement. It's looking back and saying, okay, how did that engagement start? How did that happen? And then going back and really learning about what those clients like, and what they'd want to get out of a business relationship with us. And that's helped us narrow down, okay, well, these are, companies or clients that we could probably provide the most value to. Let's, market to them and, put ourselves in the position to be able to, organically form some of those relationships, and whether it's, out on a golf course or at, an after hour, whatever it may be, it's trying to identify kind of those clients, but then also who are partners and clients that they would work with, that it would benefit those partners to work with us. Because, in the end, from the perspective of the business owner, you can't take every call of every person who has every service. That's what you do all day. So you're trying to really, I think, shorten that process and, be available to, kind of meet those clients, at the time that they want to be met, and provide them with relevant information versus really broad range. I think when I started, it was like shotgun approach. And now it's more like, slowed down, refined, and if we're going to spend time to do it, we want it to be mutually beneficial.
Yep, definitely. Like quality over quantity.
Correct.
Rather compete on that all day.
100%. Yeah.
Well, heck yeah, man. Thanks for taking the time to come and talk.
Yeah.
Have you been on a podcast before?
I had, man. This was cool.
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome. So I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. You did really good. And I think this was our 47th or 48th podcast. 52.
47. Sweet. All right. Hey,
So,
number 47. Let's go.
Man.
Awesome.
And I look forward to watching you continue to grow the business, and looking for opportunities for us to work together and support other small businesses in the community. And,
awesome.
And hopefully catching some waves before this hurricane season's over.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Cool, man. Thanks.
Awesome.